All right. So we are going to begin the Energy Committee meeting. It is 1:35. Um, First thing I had on the agenda was to review previous meeting minutes. Did
Gotcha.
either of you have any edits or feedback for the minutes from last week?
No, I think your note taking is amazing, actually. I applaud you.
Thank you.
Uh, and as far as I could tell, it's an accurate reflection on what happened whenever that was, the 16th or so, or maybe not.
The 13th,
The
yep.
13th, okay, and then we had that meeting on the 16th, yeah.
Yep. So
Okay.
I mean, I'll take a motion if
I
anyone.
moved we approve the minutes as written.
I approve as well.
All right. I approve as well. Passes unanimously. Amazing. So the next thing on the agenda was just to discuss the various meetings and conversations that Paul and I had this week regarding the elementary school boiler and the Project Expediter program for the town offices. So maybe let's start with the elementary school. Um, Paul, did you have any like first impressions with that meeting?
Well, I thought it was, I've been aching for us to get a real appraisal of the building and the situation, and we seem to be on the verge of having that done by what is the expediter for Eversource?
Oh yeah, for the town offices.
Yeah, for the town offices.
Hmm. Yep.
Nick,
Yep.
somebody or other. Yeah,
Yes.
and we don't need to apply for money, right? As I
Mm-mm.
recall. And they can do it in about a month. Am I?
Yeah, Paul, that's good news. But I think Carolyn's question was about the elementary school.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, the boiler. So I just talked to Bill Hildreth, um, and he's very conservative. I've talked to two people at Deerfield. One is Bill, who's as you know, the building and grounds guy, who was mainly responsible, I think, for the installation of the new boilers that they're getting. And he was very clear that uh, we should do the same, that we should replace the boilers if we need to replace them. They had more of an emergency situation. But as far as alternatives, he's not a big alternatives guy. And he was saying, New England winters are very tough and heat pumps can't do it and so forth and so on. So that was his attitude. And then I talked to David Keith, who's on their energy committee and who's much more renewable energy focused and was very sorry that it turned out the way it did in Deerfield and suggested that we might want to talk to like UMass Extension Energy Extension Service might be able to be a source of good ideas about what to do in lieu of just replacing the boilers or using them in a more efficient way. But I didn't I haven't had time to really pursue that. So that's unfortunately about all I have to report. Um,
Yeah, well, and Paul, you and I met with what were their names?
well, there was Nick Pettipas.
Or the grounds person. Oh, what was his name? We met with
Mm,
him on Tuesday the 14th.
Mark? No, that's different. Sorry, I'm reading ahead of my notes.
Oh, it's okay.
Uh,
Well, we met with, yeah, the grounds person basically for the Frontier Regional School System. And he was talking about how, replacing the boiler is pretty high up on their list in terms of
yes.
like priorities. And they were thinking of replacing the one boiler that's what almost like it's over 2 decades old or something like that. They want to
Okay.
replace the one boiler with two so they oscillate between the two.
Right,
Um,
right. And that was our idea as well, or we were talking about that as an option, as a possibility.
mhm, yeah. And I have not followed up with either of them since we had that meeting on the 14th. I don't know if you have either, Paul.
I have
Have you?
not. No, I
Okay.
have not.
Yeah,
Um,
they
That here, it seems to me that if you're going to have two and one is a backup, why not have one and the heat pump, right? And that you still have a boiler as a backup if you really if you have the means and resources to buy two and you think that's wiser, it doesn't require that both of them be boilers.
yeah. I guess my
right.
understanding is that they'd be two much smaller boilers than the one that they have now, and that they would oscillate between the two for energy conservation. I don't know all the details of that, but that
Yeah.
was just my impression
Mhm.
Bill,
from them.
Bill's big thing was he wants to protect the building from getting too cold. And so he says, you've got to have an oil boiler to be able to carry the load if all else fails. So
Yeah,
I don't
but
know how likely a scenario that is that a heat pump would fail, but and the
well,
boiler would fail, so we'd be stuck. Uh,
again, um, we don't have to operate them in parallel. They can be in series. When we had a air source heat pump for our home, it had a backup system, wired in. Wired isn't the right word, plumbed into it, which could have been anything, right? That would
yeah,
run or supplement the heat if the heat pump itself wasn't doing the job in full. And there you could imagine if what you need is supplementary, that a small boiler might work very well. It could be one of the options. If they really don't want to move it off entirely, they could have a boiler that's much smaller and it's only used as a supplement and would greatly reduce the footprint. And they might even discover, in the same way that a hybrid vehicle makes some people feel better than a pure electric.
right. Right, that's a good point. Sure. I wonder how small we could, obviously, the smaller we size it, assuming it can do the job, the more efficient, the more energy we save. And if we have the, if we size it so that it, I don't know, I guess though we'd have to size it to the maximum load, assume that the heat pump for some reason doesn't work, then we're not frozen or we're not too cold.
Well, I think now we're kind of going beyond our own expertise here, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
I'm sure we could get a system designed that relied on heat pumps and had a boiler as the backup because I know these systems allow for backups.
Yeah.
And then exactly how to size it, we would want a recommendation on that, right? And I wonder if ever that's probably outside of Eversource's skill set or not, but that maybe one of those other grants we could apply for to do that.
I completely agree, and I think we ought to pursue that right away before our boilers start to crap out and we're too far away from a grant to get the money to do it. And I agree. And also, I think anybody from Eversource, not to impugn our utility, but their interest is not necessarily in increasing fossil fuel usage or, you know, um, so I think that they ought to be on board with getting a heat pump system in there, assuming it's well,
So it sounds like next steps, at least for that, would be to have probably another discussion with the people we spoke with on the 14th and bring this to them of like, have you looked into other alternatives outside of boilers? Have you considered heat pumps? We would be willing to help pursue um, exploring alternatives for boilers. Does that sound like a good
yes.
next step?
Well, yeah, can't we get one of those technical assistance grants or whatever they call them? Uh,
We could apply for one. Yeah.
We could apply for one. Well, let's apply for one. That would be my
Yeah,
suggestion.
I think that report would bring credibility that perhaps we don't. Oh, we're overlooking. We're too optimistic or something. And I think it would inform the discussion nicely.
Yeah, I agree. I so moved. Um, well, so the next step would be, Caroline, you would find out what we're looking for in terms of somebody who could do that kind of analysis, and if we needed a grant to do it, start
Hmm.
getting on board with getting the grant written up and submitted. Or
Yeah. And I can start looking at that this week. And because I had previously started looking at it and whatnot. So I'll take a look.
I'd
And
like you to, if you don't mind, I'd like you to call David Keith.
okay.
He's on the Energy Committee of Deerfield, and he's a big proponent of heat pumps and not a big proponent of replacing the oil boilers with just as big oil boilers.
Okay.
And his number is 413-883-6137. And we've talked briefly, so it would be good to touch base with him while he still remembers we had a conversation, and pick his brain. And also, if you don't mind too, UMass Extension Service has an energy specialist. David worked with this guy, Ben Weil, and he said he was excellent consultant, very thorough, very knowledgeable. Unfortunately, Ben Weil has left UMass. So the thing to do would be to call the UMass Extension Service and see who's replaced Ben and see if he can shed some light on our best course forward.
All right. I'll add that to my to-do list.
Better yours than mine.
Um,
Yes, when Paul was speaking about let's call them quickly before we forget, I'm sure he was referring to the two of us rather than you.
Oh, absolutely. God. Yeah. No wonder people retire at 60.
Um, the next thing I had on the agenda was that Paul and I and Pete met with the Eversource project expediters and their selected engineers who are going to come and evaluate the town office's meeting. I actually, as we've been speaking, just got an email from the engineers who said that they have submitted their application to Eversource, their like official application to complete a comprehensive building assessment for the town offices. Um, and yeah, so that's good news that that is like moving forward and pretty quickly. It sounds like they're going to try to come do a site visit of the town offices either sometime this week or next week.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, so that's moving along, and that again is completely free to us, and will give us some very clear next steps of what we'll need to do
That's
in the
great.
town offices. Um, Anything you wanted to add about that meeting, Paul? I mean, it was pretty, there was lots of information. And it was mostly, it felt like between Eversource and the engineers of like just everybody getting up to page.
Yeah. Nope, I have nothing to add. Um, it's a pretty straightforward proposition. They got to,
Yeah.
you know, weatherization and energy management and all that stuff is very routine. And I'm sure the utilities will do a good job, especially my ex, Lynn, has worked with this guy, Nick
Hmm.
Pettypaz or whatever, I don't remember who was in which meeting, but I think he was in that meeting, and he's a really solid guy, according to her. And I trust her evaluation. So I think that's right. That's good.
All
All
right.
right, sounds like we're getting this done just in the nick of time.
I know. Um, the next thing I had on my docket was just last meeting we had um one of my tasks to do after the meeting was to reach out to Pete to talk about police vehicle fleets, and Pete let me know that the police department has a current capital request for fiscal year 2027, and they have requested a new hybrid cruiser. Um, so the next time that they will be looking for a new fleet vehicle will be 3 years after that. So it's every 3 years. But I also learned that the water department is going to be needing a new vehicle within the next 1 to 2 years. Um,
Now, surely they could get an EV because one of the problems with the police is they're always running the car when they're in it, even if they're
right.
stationary, and they need a long-lasting charge. I don't think the water vehicle would be that uh, it would not run into that problem, right? Because
I,
I
I
think
think that's I think that's true. And so they have, like, the water department and Wayne have not completed a capital request for that yet. And so but it's likely to come in the next year or two. And so that's a good opportunity, I think, for us to be a little bit proactive about, reaching out to Wayne, talking about his options with electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles to see what would work best for him and his department.
Quick question, where is the water department located? Where do they store their vehicle?
I believe, well, so there's the pump house. I believe the water department is on Egypt Road over by
Hmm.
the railroad tracks. It's I
And where do they keep their vehicle that they use?
That I don't know. I'm
they
not
need
sure if
a
they put it in
charger
the
somewhere.
garage. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
maybe they should just keep it at the town garage and we put a charger in there or
Right. That's my point, that
Yeah.
we should also figure out how to get an appropriate charger in the location that it would be needed by that time. Right.
hmm
Correct. Correct. And Wayne, this is a little off topic and off the agenda, but Wayne did come to me last week and has been exploring options of getting solar to power the water pump house. And he's gotten like a quote and a design from a solar company. Um, and so that's also something that he's interested in. So I'm not sure um, how quickly he wants to move on that. But so he's gotten one quote so far and one plan. Um, but maybe just something else to
would that solar system be sized to run the water pumps? Is that
correct
the
the
idea?
pump house. Yep.
Huh. Yeah, well, that's another design project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds very interesting,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
but
a
it makes sense.
Yeah.
could be a battery application.
He doesn't want to put a battery in. I guess that's part of it, but
Well, one of
I,
the reasons for putting a battery in would be during a shutdown, a utility shutdown, we'd still have a source of power ready to go, emergency
yeah,
power generation.
that's true. Yeah. And I think he's very early stages into the project. Um, the way his initial design from the company that the company had sent to him, I can't remember what, maybe it was like Northeast Solar or something like that, had it very close to that river that goes right by the pump house.
The
Um,
Westbrook, yeah.
yeah, and they had solar in the floodplain over there, and so I asked if he could get some different design options, just because I know that would be an issue. Um, so, but we're gonna go from there, right? And it's still very early stages for that, and he um wanted to ask a couple more solar companies what they thought as well.
Okay.
Uh,
Just
It,
for Go ahead, Nat.
oh, it could be that farmers would be interested in seeing and copying that system as well. I mean, irrigation, it doesn't usually matter exactly when you do it. And the pumping for irrigation would be an easy application.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And going back to EVs, I was interested in reading an article in the Times this morning entitled "The Rise of High-Range, Less Expensive EVs," and they have charts and graphs about, you know, 300 plus miles and the correlation with the distance traveled and the energy and the cost of the car, actually.
Hmm.
And I recommend I can send you a link to it, both of you, if you're interested.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me started, but my maintenance costs are tire replacement and windshield wipe washer fluid replacement. You know, that's it.
Well, that's that's not too different from me. I have to replace my oil, but otherwise, I'll get this out to you both. It's an interesting article, and there's a nice graphic. Tesla Model 3 is way up there, as you
Mm.
might expect, but but then at the bottom, the Chevrolet Spark, which I've never heard of, seems to be a winner on the price, but a loser on the mileage. So it goes from
Mm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Anyway, food for
I
thought.
think the Spark is being discontinued, but anyway,
Oh,
okay.
Mm.
that's too bad. Yep. Okay, that's all I got.
Okay. So the last item on the agenda that I had, so for the town office's solar installation, um, all of the panels at this point have been installed, which is great. But part of the grant requirement for, for the money to install these panels is to host some public engagement events to inform the town about the installation of the solar and the benefits that the town kind of reaps from them. Um, and so I wanted to pose to the two of you if you two had could like help me think of like what would an event or an informational session look like? Should we include, refreshments? I also, as part of the grant, have to send out postcards to everyone in town to invite them. So if we like, if you think it would be better to do it, at the town offices where the solar was actually installed, like, or if we should have it at town hall, that's something to discuss. When would be a good time to do it? It has to happen before June 30th.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that to the two of you to say, like, do you have any ideas or recommendations for how me or Pete, or if you two wanted to participate as well, like, how can we engage with the public around the town
Yeah.
office's solar?
My initial thoughts are a standalone event like that rarely gets much attendance.
Yeah.
Um, it should be better to be combined with something else, such as town meeting, which I think would happen before you need to as well. And people often have tables to hand out additional information in addition to the town warrant. I do see some advantage to having it at the town offices, but only if they can actually see the solar
Mhm.
on the roof, which I kind of wonder, is there really good visibility of the roof from the town offices? Um,
There is from the parking lot, yes. Like as soon as you park your car, you can see the solar panels.
hmm.
in that case, I would recommend coupling it with some other reason that people would also
Mhm.
be there. Uh,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're going to have donuts for 50 people and five are going to show up.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Oh,
possibly.
yes. The one thing that occurs to me, but we probably don't have enough time, is an energy, not just related to the PVs on the roof, but providing people with information about the 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 benefits of solar and conservation and get some of these people out here like the UMass Extension people or I don't know if we want to get with vendors or have an EV. Maybe the Chevrolet dealership would drive up one of their EVs and we could all look at that and um, how underground heat pumps work. And, you know, I don't want to make it into a big production, but on the other hand, I sort of agree with Nat that having people show up and look at some flat things on the roof that they've seen a lot of already is probably not a big draw.
Yeah.
Now, if you wanted to get a good music act there, I could arrange that.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm sort of
Yeah,
kidding.
let's make sure that they use electric guitars, though.
Yeah. Well, we could have our amplifiers solar powered. It'd be solar rock and roll, rock and soul. Haha. Anyhow, well, keep me abreast of developments, Caroline, and if I have any serious ideas, I'll let you know.
Yeah, because well, so the grant requires that Pete and I do like 12 hours worth of like office hours at town hall, like invite residents like if they want to come and ask questions, like Pete and I will be in the office during that dedicated time to like answer any questions. Some sort of public engagement event to involve the community in it and some type of postage to let them know um
Well,
about
if we're going to use the town offices, meanwhile we're doing this town office energy stuff.
it. Hmm.
Um, I don't know about you, but I think, energy management systems are interesting and people would learn a lot about what we're doing there, which is analyzing the building for its weatherization, suitability, and conservation potential. So you tie that in with looking at the solar panels for perhaps. I
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
top of my head.
I
that's
really
helpful.
like the idea of coupling it with like EV demonstration. Maybe we can get Chevy to show off one of their Chevy Blazer PPV police vehicles.
Yeah, or a bus if they have a light gauge. We talked about some of our transportation needs, especially driving seniors around, involves a van or Meals on Wheels or whatever. And,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, no idea.
no idea either. Yeah. But anyway, food for
Okay,
thought.
well, I'll bring these ideas to Pete. I'm meeting with him on Thursday to just do a general like project update with him. But yeah, like this type of event would have to happen before June 30th. So if we wanted to do something, I'd probably have to be around mid-June, I'm thinking, to have enough time.
Yeah.
Um, or like Nat suggested, like couple it with town meeting on June 2nd.
Yeah, I doubt that I'm essential to this exercise, but I'll be leaving the day after town meeting for Sweden for 2 months. Um,
Oh, that's too bad.
and I'm really considering coming back, but
If they'll let you in the country.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you have to have office hours as well, please make them office hours you're already holding. Um,
Yes. Yes. It's not I'm not going like I only work on the office in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I think what Pete and I are going to do is he'll take Mondays and Wednesdays and I'll take Tuesdays and Thursdays. Um and go from there. I mean, not that, I mean, maybe people will come, I'm not sure, but kind of like you said, Nat, like we'll make sure that the invitation is, put out there and marketed and whatnot, but I'm not sure how popular they're going to be.
Well,
Um,
I think if you send a mailing to every house in Whately, that's in and of itself a worthwhile endeavor to let them know that here's the deal with solar these days in terms of rebates, if there are any left, and
mhm.
that kind of thing. It's always good to, advertise, advertise, advertise.
Yep. Yep. So what I might do before our next meeting is like draft up something that would go on a postcard. And it'd be great if I could send it to the two of you and just get some feedback of
Sure.
like, how does it sound? Should I add anything? Um, yeah, that
Nat, do you know when the next scoop is coming out?
No, we just, I doubt not anytime soon. It only comes out 4 times a year.
Right.
yes, I think June 15th.
Oh, it's just a little too late, maybe.
I think so.
Oh, well.
A good thought though. A good thought
Yep.
though.
Yep. We try.
Okay. So I'll do some more thinking on that.
All right.
Was there anything else that you two wanted to discuss today that we haven't yet?
Uh,
No thanks.
no,
All right.
I'm very satisfied with our discussion.
Amazing. Well, then I would take a motion to adjourn if everyone feels satisfied with
You
our
got
meeting.
it. I
Okay,
se
so moved.
second.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. All right. This meeting
Joyce
has been
should
adjourned.
Joyce would
Thank
have
you,
us call the roll though to be official.
Oh, for
Thank you.
goodness sake, Nat, I.
Paul, aye. Okay,
Caroline.
now we're
Aye.
official.
Yep.
Good.
Actually, we need to set next meeting. I forgot about that.
Oh, hmm. I
Sorry.
think we might
We
have lost
adjourned too
Nat.
soon.
Um,
Oh, there he is. Well,
I
we've been
would
doing,
say if they could be a little more infrequent during the summer, that would be helpful.
Yeah, of course.
and when are you going to Sweden? I mean, that takes a big chunk.
Well, look, I'm leaving Thursday for 10 days. I'll be back on the 11th of May, and then I'm leaving June 3rd, and I'll be gone through July 30th.
Okay.
Wow.
So pick around that. But after May 11th, I'm much more flexible.
Okay. Could maybe does like May 18th or May 25th sound or also May 25th is Memorial Day, so I'm not working that day. So would May 18th work for everyone at 1:30?
Sure.
Yeah, sounds fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now we can adjourn for real this time.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.